What's going on, everybody? You're listening to NYNO. No, you're not objective. My name is Michael Baylor, and I'm with my main man, my co-host, David Hodge, live from Boone, North Carolina. How's it going, man? 1 year older, just had a recent birthday.
Yep.
You're old, man.
I feel so old.
And the other voice that you're hearing, the other face that you're seeing, if you're watching this back on YouTube, it's a good friend of ours, former roommate of ours, Chad McCurgy. He is also the commissioner. How you doing, first of all?
Great. Fantastic. Thanks for asking.
We'll be talking about it a little bit more later on, but he is also the commissioner of our long-standing 9 years. We'll be at 9 years this year. Fantasy Football League, the nuclear underground base. Secret. So it's a secret base, right?
Secret, man.
Secret.
I always have a hard time with nuclear, but
secret underground nuclear base.
Yep.
Secret underground nuclear base, and we've been running that now since what, 2008, right?
It would have been 2009.
2009.
2009. So it was like the 9-10 season.
Yep.
Okay, so but this is our like 9th draft that's coming up in a couple of weeks, right?
Accurate.
Okay, so we'll be getting into that here in a little bit, because we'll give you a little bit of a teaser for the anniversary pod, for the 9-year anniversary pod, which will be coming up in a couple of weeks. We'll be recording live during our fantasy football draft and talking a little bit about the highs and lows of fantasy football, some highs and lows of just our league, what we're expecting from our different players this year, and so on and so forth. So we're excited about that. But first of all, we decided we had to get in on the whole hype that's happening, because it's been a pretty slow summer outside of a huge bomb that got dropped today. And it was first reported by the Sham God, the leftovers that are still over at the Vertical. Kyrie Irving is being traded to the Boston Celtics for Isaiah Thomas, Jay Crowder, Zizic, and the #1 2018 Brooklyn pick.
Can you say Zizic's whole name?
I don't know that. I can't say his whole name. So I'm just saying Zizic because I've heard that last name like ad nauseum over the last 24 hours. So I'm excited. So I won't start first, David. What's your thoughts? Because what people don't know, if you don't already know, David is ride or die for the Charlotte Hornets and has a soft spot in his heart for the Los Angeles Clippers. He made that decision around the time that we started the Secret Underground Nuclear Base League, just at a whim that he was going to be a Clippers fan. So his allegiances are sort of split. I would probably say 70-30 between the Hornets and the Los Angeles Clippers. So
it's probably like 90-10 now.
90-10,
maybe even 95-5.
Okay, gotcha.
So if we take it back to 2009, I would venture to say it was maybe more like 30-70 in favor of the Clips.
Yeah, it was.
There was a point where he was heavy into the Clippers. And now, granted, that was pre Hornets. That was Bobcats days.
That was Bobcats days. That was pre Michael Jordan Bobcats. That was Bob Johnson Bobcats, which I did not like.
Exactly. Exactly. You hate Bob Johnson.
Well,
now this is really going to be interesting because, as some background, David loves Charlotte sports. Loves North Carolina sports in general. Now, he is from Charlotte, North Carolina, born and raised in Charlotte, North Carolina, in that area. Now, my friend over here, Chad McCurgy, I am a Raleigh transplant, but Chad was born and raised in the RDU area.
Raised at least.
That's right. You were born in South Carolina, right?
Simpsonville, right?
Born in South Carolina, but raised in the Raleigh area. And if anybody knows anything about North Carolina, the real rivalry is between the Charlotte, North Carolina area and the Raleigh, North Carolina area. So it's good to have both of these guys on. So first of all, I want to throw it to you guys, starting with you, David. What you think about this most recent trade?
Well, first off, can I request that we call this episode "No, You're Not Zizic."
Sure.
That would be pretty funny. Man, I like the trade for both sides. I think ultimately, I don't know. The only problem I have is I don't know why the Celtics made this trade now when they could have gotten Jimmy Butler for cheaper and kept Isaiah Thomas. But they traded away
Was he cheaper?
Yeah, dude.
What was the offer?
I mean, other than the fact that his contract is literally cheaper than Kyrie's.
Yeah, and I mean they gave what, Zach LaVine and Chris Dunn and a draft pick for Jimmy Butler.
Yeah.
And didn't they get somebody? I felt like they got somebody else. Maybe not. Maybe it was just Butler. Yeah, I think it was curious to me, but it also, I felt like they were saying like definitively we want to be the best team in the East after LeBron's gone. And I think they did that.
Who is this?
The Celtics.
Oh, the Celtics. Okay. Gotcha.
Cleveland got better right now, I think. And they also got a really good draft pick to help
How
build
exactly
in the
did they
future.
get better?
They got a really good.
I don't want to jump the lead on how I feel about it, but sure. Go. How did they get better?
They got a slashing point guard that isn't similar in style to Kyrie, but in production he is. Also, they got a really good 3-and-D role player in Jay Crowder. I don't really think Zizic made the trade. I think they just wanted a backup center. And like I said, that number 1 draft pick is the big kicker with all of it. Because I think they got better now and they got a draft pick that's really good.
So to your point, so that it was that trade happened on draft day. So the Chicago Bulls, or excuse me, the Minnesota Timberwolves got Jimmy Butler, but they also got the number 16 pick.
Yeah.
So that they ended up getting 2 pieces there. Which I don't exactly know who that 16th pick ended up being, but doesn't really matter when you have Andrew Wiggins, Cat, and now
like
Jimmy
a big
Butler
man or something like that.
I believe so, but they ended up with their point at the point guard position. They ended up getting Jeff Teague anyways. So
yep.
Chad, what say you?
Well, let me preface this by saying I am a terrible NBA fan. I'm mostly like a bandwagon LeBron/Cleveland playoffs only fan.
Well, this will be fun.
Yeah. So I get to bring the uninformed opinion tonight, but yeah.
Well, this is the ultimate fan podcast. So
yeah. I think, I don't know. For me, from like a Cleveland perspective, maybe they got a little bit better, but I don't really know if they're going to be in a place where all of a sudden they can compete with Golden State. Like from like a big 4, quote unquote big 4 perspective. I don't know if they really have like a big 4 now. Like they handled the Kyrie situation, and so like, all right, agreed, David. Like, at least production wise, I think like Thomas and Kyrie, they're going to be more or less a wash. And I'm a huge believer in LeBron's ability and like flexibility, basketball acumen. Here, like between him and Ty Lue, like they'll figure out something to make it work as far as like styles and stuff go. But yeah, beyond that, like I think one of those guys, as I recall, is like pretty good 2-way player. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know that. I feel like they had a lot of ground to make up to really be able to compete for the championship again. And I don't know if they're really necessarily there yet. They might not be done making deals. I don't know. I don't presume to know, but yeah.
Yeah. So
I guess it was a good move, but I'm not like that excited about it.
honestly, this is probably one of the most, in my opinion, this is probably one of the most well done trades that I've seen in a while. Where
By both teams?
by in such a way that neither team got totally fleeced. Right now, in my opinion, I don't believe that the Cleveland Cavaliers won this trade. Granted, I will say that neither team got fleeced. Right now, I do think that some players got fleeced. I think that ultimately Isaiah Thomas ended up in a position that he's going to, if he's not kicking himself now, he will eventually. I've actually been trying to look out for his social media. Because as the whole free agency period was going on, he was really active. He was tweeting at guys like Gordon Hayward. He started following guys that were on the market, whatever the case may be. And since this trade has happened, he's gotten very silent, which I guess I can understand to a certain degree.
Everybody has, except for LeBron.
Right. Well, everybody was looking for what. Well, yeah, because Kyrie. Well, has Kyrie actually said anything? I haven't seen anything yet.
No.
So
He's be happy about it, though. I think. I mean,
I don't know. It wasn't on his list. I'm interested to see. Happy. That's the thing, and here's the reason why I think ends up being a mixed bag, especially on the part of the players, because when you talk about Isaiah Thomas, he is 30 years old, and I didn't realize this.
No, I thought he was 28.
I don't think so, man. We'll have to fact check that.
All right, I'm looking as we speak. Go ahead. Okay.
So Isaiah Thomas being at the age range that he's at, right? From what I understand, I have a hard time seeing somebody paying him the amount of money that he is looking for at the end of this contract that he's going to be trying to get paid. Right. I have a very hard time seeing that because the man is 5'9". Now, granted, it's not as if Kyrie Irving is that much taller than him. I think Kyrie Irving is 6'1", possibly. It's not like he's a Steve Nash 6'3", 6'4" point guard.
I think Nash was like 6 foot, dude.
I think Steve Nash was taller than you think.
6'2" or 6'3".
He was taller than you think.
He wasn't that.
He was a normal sized point guard, right? I don't think Kyrie Irving is a normal sized point guard. I think he's a little bit on the shorter side, but he's not necessarily he's not on the tall side either. You know what I mean? So when you talk about somebody like an Isaiah Thomas who's 5'9", the track record for people just backing up the Brinks truck as he was quoted saying that the Celtics would have to do is not very high, right? Probably the last time 6'3". That's what I was. Yeah, he's not super. You said Kyrie Irving 6'3". Gotcha. It's not as if Kyrie Irving is a 6'9" point forward, right? Like he's not in the range of like Alonzo Ball, like who's 6'7", I believe, in that range, right? He's not in the power guard position of like a LeBron James who's in that 6'9" range, you know what I mean, and is a ball handler. But at the same time, so you've got somebody like I was saying, you've got somebody like an Isaiah Thomas who's going to be looking to get paid, and I don't think a lot of teams are going to want to pay him. The team who would have been in a position to pay him is the team who actually let him go, and so I think that's a pretty unfortunate situation for Isaiah Thomas. Now, who won the trade? You know, there's a special place in my heart for the Boston Celtics. And so I've got to go with them, especially considering the fact that now the one downside that they have is that this year their starting five is going to be is only going to have one guy. If they end up starting Jason Tatum, it's only going to have one guy who played on the team last year. Now that would be Al Horford, because theoretically, your one guard would be Kyrie Irving, two guard would be Jason Tatum, three would be Gordon Hayward, four would be one of the Morris twins boys, and then
Jason
five.
Tatum's a 3, bro.
When you got Gordon Hayward, you got to push him to the. I mean,
I don't think Tatum's going to start.
Well, that's the other argument is he going to start or is he not going to start? So you've got Tatum, who looked solid in summer league, but he looks like somebody who's still in college. Whereas Gordon Hayward, who probably plays this around the same position. Gordon Hayward has more girth, so it would make more sense to put Gordon Hayward at the 3, in my opinion. And I think, honestly, that's where they'll try to put him.
So I think it's going to be Kyrie, Jaylen Brown, Gordon Hayward, Marcus Morris, and Al Horford. So only 2 guys that were on the Celtics last year.
So you're saying that they've got Jaylen Brown going in at the 2 guard?
Yeah. Now they might switch it up, but I mean, Tatum's like 18 years old. I don't think they'll start him. I think he's like a stash for the future, play him off the bench. I mean, he's good. I'm not saying he's bad or anything. I'm just saying this year, like right now, they probably won't start him.
It'd be interesting, man. It'd be interesting. We'll see what happens with that. And that's what I'm saying.
He plays more of a 3.
In what system? At Duke, right?
At Duke, he played a 4.
Yeah, but this is the NBA. Tyler Hansbrough played the 5 in college.
That's what I'm saying. Is like he's more of a 3 in the NBA. He's not like
not right now. Not right now. Okay, let's look at our other 3 guards. Right, you've got at the 3. You've got people like Carmelo Anthony, who's built like a man. You've got somebody even who plays. He probably vacillates between the 2 and the 3 in a Kevin Durant. Who also he's skinny, but the man has been in the NBA for a while. You've got people like Jay Crowder, and you've even got people like LeBron James. Jay
3 and the 4. Play a 4 in a small lineup. Play the 3 in like a normal lineup.
But this is what I'm saying. Jason Tatum is fresh out of his first year of college. He doesn't have the girth and the body to body up somebody at the 3.
Yeah, but like that's what I'm saying. They're probably going to play him off the bench. He wasn't drafted for his defense anyways.
No, that's what I'm saying though. What I'm saying is that if you have him at the 2, you can really utilize his offensive skills, in my opinion. Because at the 3, he's going to have to go up against guys that he has no business playing against.
Yeah, I mean, I think
the 3 position, in my opinion, right now is like the most sought after position in the NBA these days.
Yeah, dude. I mean, Jason Tatum he's 6'8", 205 pounds. Like, he's super skinny. Like, I'm not disagreeing with you. What I'm trying to say is he is a natural small forward in the NBA, and they're probably gonna work him into that because they can.
He's a natural small forward in the fact that he's 6'8", or in the fact of his skill set?
In his skill set and the fact of his size, both. Every college player has to bulk up when they come to the NBA. It's like part of the process. It's why you don't see many rookies starting.
Based off of his skill set, he is a 2 guard.
I'm saying he's a 3 guard based off of his skill set. He's just not going to start. Like, he's not going to guard LeBron James because he's not going to start. You know what I mean?
Maybe. Okay, one, I did make the caveat that he could, if he started, he would be somebody who had not played on the team last year, right? Like, that's the caveat. Yeah, but like, there's no guarantee that Jaylen Brown will even start, right?
Correct. Yeah, that's correct. But if he does, he would have been the exception to that,
right?
Which is what all this was for.
Yes. So when you're talking about that you don't have a core on the starting 5 of the Boston Celtics who have been together for a year and who have played together for a year. That's the one big downside, in my opinion, to this. On the other side of things, you really only lost Kyrie Irving out of the starting 5 of the Cleveland Cavaliers. And so because of that, there is a possibility to me that would suggest that the Cleveland Cavaliers aren't that much worse off. However, I have a hard time seeing Isaiah Thomas fitting into that system. And the reason being is because I don't really think that Isaiah Thomas is like a pass first point guard. When you looked at him last year on the Boston Celtics, quarters 1 through 3, maybe so. But he was also one of the leading scorers in the NBA because during the 4th quarter, give me the ball and get the hell out of the way was his mindset, right? So how are you going to have him who thinks he's the best player on the floor every night when he actually is playing with the best player on the floor every night?
But doesn't
Which
that
you know how hard of a thing that is for me to say.
But doesn't that fit perfectly with LeBron? LeBron is all first 3 quarters. Fourth quarter, he's nowhere near what he is the first 3 quarters, unless it's garbage time. To
mention, it's not like Kyrie was just getting like 20 assists a game. Like, he was putting up points, and if I recall correctly, he actually took more shots last year than LeBron did.
That is right. I was listening to somebody say this today, that people who play with LeBron end up having their best years offensively because LeBron loves to pass to them. I don't know, man. Looking at Isaiah Thomas's game, I have a hard time seeing him coming off the ball, because this is what LeBron's going to do. He did it all last year. He's going to come off of the baseline, dribbling it up the floor and being the floor general. So Isaiah Thomas is going to have to, if he doesn't already, have to develop the part of his game where he's actually playing without the ball. And I'm not 100% convinced that he can do that. Just my opinion. Now, granted, what I've heard, now this is all speculation, as everything is in the NBA these days, that this Cleveland Cavaliers are probably not done and could even package that again, could package Isaiah Thomas and ship him off again. Because really, when we're looking at it, people are talking about how the Cleveland Cavaliers want to set themselves up for the future in case LeBron doesn't stay. I don't think you're setting yourself up for a great future if all you have is the best player that you now have on your team is Isaiah Thomas.
But that's the thing, man. Like, look at it from this perspective, though. Like, okay, so Isaiah was the only, like, really true dribble drive person on his team last year.
Right.
He, like, put them on his back. He was pretty much the main scorer on that team.
Well, honestly, I'm a huge fan of Marcus Smart, so,
Marcus Smart was, like, the sixth man for them.
No, I understand, but I have a special place in my heart for Marcus Smart.
When you have an Isaiah Thomas playing at the same time with guys who can penetrate and drive to the basket as well, really one guy in LeBron James, that's going to open up so many lanes for him. And then you still have 3-point shooters in Cleveland, just like he had in Boston. Now, I think obviously Brad Stevens is a better coach, so I don't know how that whole transition is going to be. Like, maybe we'll get a little bit of insight as to, like, how good of a coach Brad Stevens actually is, seeing how effective Isaiah Thomas is in Cleveland as opposed to Boston. But I think it's going to be great for him, man. I think it presents really more opportunity for Isaiah Thomas. I'm not saying that, like Chad was saying, I'm not saying they're going to beat the Warriors in 6 games. And I'm not saying that, like, Boston might beat them in the Eastern Conference Finals.
Maybe, depending on how they gel. Depending on how they gel.
Depends on how they gel, but also depending on how well Hayward plays. Like, if Hayward fits into that system and is the player that they think he can be, like, then, like, a 20-10 guy in the playoffs.
Did you know he trains with Kobe?
No, I didn't. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, man. Gordon Hayward, he's in it to win it, man.
Yeah, I mean, he's one of those guys. He's gotten better, like, every single year. I'm not saying I doubt him. I'm just saying, like, if he can make that next step to be, like, a star/fringe superstar, like, they could easily beat the Cavs in certain aspects.
Quick piece. So we talked about this. One of the things that went to the Cleveland Cavaliers last year, or went to the Cleveland Cavaliers in this trade, was the first pick for the Brooklyn Nets, right? This was a pick that was acquired by the Celtics in the trade when they sent Kevin Garnett and Paul Pierce over to Brooklyn some years ago. Now, the thought process is that, and this is the reason why they packaged it, to be quite honest, is because there is a chance that Brooklyn could be terrible again. And David, you talked a little bit about the fact that they probably will be terrible. But if we remember, Jeremy Lin did not play at all last year. At all very much last year. And he will be back in full force.
So you're really poo-pooing on this trade because of the fact that Brooklyn may be not as terrible?
Yeah. No, I'm not saying well, okay, so I'm not saying that it was a terrible trade. What I am saying though is that there's a good chance. Like there is an excellent chance, in my opinion, that Brooklyn could possibly not end up being in the playoffs, but be totally out of the running for the first pick in the draft, right? Like last year, they were not good, right? But if they ended up being the number 9 seed and the Eastern Conference, that's still that. I mean, you're essentially talking about where Charlotte is every year, and we don't get the number 1 seed any year.
Hey man, it's hard work being that mediocre for that long.
You know what I'm saying? So like, if you can be the number 9 team in the NBA, which is not great, even if you're the number 10 team in the not even in the NBA, excuse me, in the Eastern Conference, if you can be the number 10 team in the Eastern Conference and you're not the worst team in the league, and you don't, or not even in the top 3 worst teams in the league, you have a chance to not end up getting that number 1 seed. And if that's the case, I think there's a legitimate chance for that to happen for the Brooklyn Nets this year. When you talk about the fact that they've got D'Angelo Russell, who's now on the team, you've got Timothy Mozgov, who I don't necessarily think he's amazing, but he's, you know, when we're talking about they're now in the East, right? You got Jeremy Lin, who will be back on the court, even if he's coming off the bench. If they decide to go with him in the second unit and go with D'Angelo in the first unit, granted that people are talking about D'Angelo Russell as a shooting guard, anyways. Outside of that, you've got Randy Foye, you've got DeMarre Carroll. This is a serviceable average team. And that's all Boston needs Brooklyn to be for this trade to be a success, is for Brooklyn to be the most average team in the NBA.
Yeah.
What do you think?
And Cleveland will still have a top 15 pick in the draft with an all-star point guard and a really good role player.
The 16th pick in this year's draft that's quote unquote the 16th pick in this year's draft that was quote unquote a good deal or something like that for the Minnesota Timberwolves was Justin Patton from Creighton.
And Cleveland to play old man Richard Jefferson for 30 minutes a game like they did in the flipping finals anymore. That's what Cleveland got. Like I think that's the biggest linchpin to this.
Who did they get? Who did they get?
Jay Crowder.
To play the Richard Jefferson role?
Yes.
I'm sorry, man. I can't be with you on that.
What are you talking about? They play the same position.
I can't be with you on that.
They added a really good...
No. LeBron James and Jay Crowder play the same position, not Richard Jefferson and
LeBron. You can't look at it like that. So LeBron James is going to be out on the floor he's going to take like 2 minutes of rest per night, especially in the playoffs, unless they are just beating the crap out of teams. They need rotational bigs who can come on the floor and shoot threes, which is why Richard Jefferson was always on the freaking floor. Now,
okay, so you're telling me that in the last 5 minutes, who's at the 5 for the Cavs?
Tristan Thompson.
Tristan Thompson's at the 5 for the Cavs. Who's at the 4 for the Cavs?
I don't know. I don't have their depth chart.
The 4 for the Cavs would probably in this situation be Kevin Love. Right?
Yeah.
He would be the 4. The 3 in this situation is probably LeBron James, but he's whatever he chooses to be at whatever moment.
Yeah, dude,
right?
Their lineups like move around so much, which is most NBA teams nowadays.
Well, except for the 1, which would be Isaiah Thomas.
Yeah.
And the 2, so are you saying so Jay Crowder is either the 2 or the 3, but in this situation, Jay
Crowder is a 3 or a 4.
Where in the situation do you see Jay Crowder playing? Because you still have both J.R. Smith and what's the brother with the high top?
Iman Shumpert.
Iman Shumpert.
Yeah. No, Iman Shumpert is a 2-guard. He comes off the bench for JR. Here's the thing, man.
JR should be coming off the bench. But keep going.
Old man Richard Jefferson played so much for them. They can't have that. They got a younger guy who can do the same thing, if not better. He can play big in the paint, and he can shoot from outside, and he plays really good defense.
Some Boston fans would disagree with you that Jay Crowder is highly overrated.
Now they would, because they just traded him. Boston fans always do this crap. It's like today, all that crap, they started leaking stories about Isaiah Thomas and how he was a bad locker room teammate.
I will say that was pretty shady. That was pretty shady.
Boston sports and Boston fans do this crap all the time. They do it with the Patriots. When they trade a guy, it's like, oh, he's crap. He sucks. He's overrated. When they trade for a guy,
those people that leave,
he's going to be amazing.
The Patriots, are they amazing when they leave?
That's what I'm saying. Like, the Boston fans in general always do this.
No, but I'm saying when those people left the Patriots,
you cannot use that. Jay Crowder is a very good player, and Boston played him a lot for him to be overrated.
Because who else did they have?
They had Kelly Olynyk, who scored how many points against Cleveland that one night or whatever.
They played Kelly Olynyk because he wasn't afraid to dislocate a man's shoulder.
Man, you are going all in for your team right now.
Hey, man. So let's lead this to the larger question.
Let's talk about your allegiances for a second.
No, let's lead this.
Let's talk about your larger question
for a second. We can talk about my allegiances.
If you're going to talk about my allegiances, let's look at your allegiances.
What do we want to talk about?
That you love Boston and you hate LeBron James.
Yeah, that's so well documented.
It's contorting your whole view of this situation.
Listen, man. Listen. So let's to be really honest, right? One of my favorite players that has ever played the game is Kevin Garnett, right? And when he went to the Boston Celtics, who I've always liked generally, right? Always kind of generally liked the Boston Celtics. When he went to the Boston Celtics, it made me really like them. And so I have followed them over the course of the years. Now, to something that maybe you'll appreciate, maybe you won't, is that if the Boston Celtics and the Charlotte Hornets were to play one another in the Eastern Conference Finals, which in no situation in the next 50 years will this happen. But in some situation,
I don't know why you bag on Charlotte so much. They're getting their stuff
because I expect better.
And they're doing better.
Okay. so if in some situation, in some alternate universe, if the Charlotte Hornets and the Boston Celtics were to play one another in the Eastern Conference Finals, I would pull for the Charlotte Hornets. I would, because I live here, and so I would pull for them. But the chances of that happening are so few and far between. And the issue that I have a lot of times, actually, if we really want to get into it with the Charlotte Hornets and the Charlotte Hornet fan base, is that they are some of the most delusional people I've ever seen in my life. They think that just because they get an 8th seed in the Eastern Conference, that makes them a good team. No, it still means that they're an average team. There's only 16 teams in the Eastern Conference, and if 8 get into all the time. I've heard it from you.
I've never said that we are good because we got into the playoffs as an 8th seed.
If you are 7 or 8, you are still in the middle of the pack in the playoffs. If you are 7 or 8, you are still middle of the pack of the playoffs, which does not make you a good team. By definition, it makes you average.
Exactly. You're an average team. The thing about it is that Charlotte fans for like how many years didn't get to see their team play in the playoffs. So anytime that their team makes it to the playoffs, they think it's awesome because they're never on national TV anyways. So
I just don't feel like I should give somebody a cookie for that.
I don't think Charlotte fans are asking for that. I think Charlotte fans get excited because it's not normal for them. I don't think anybody's saying that they're like a good team.
I don't know, man. I just think that there's an unrealistic view of Charlotte sports, and I enjoy going to games. I enjoy seeing the home team do well. But even as we get to talking about preseason, I think that we are unrealistic about Carolina or North Carolina football. You know what I'm saying? Like, I just think Carolina football in general, excuse me. So I think when you look at even on the football side of things, like there's a year or two of a good year, and then there's a down year. And I think that there's this thought process of the Carolina Panthers being this beacon of they're a stalwart in the NFL. When you have every other year of doing well, that makes you average.
Mike,
well, kind of
ridiculous right now.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, that's
nobody says the stuff that you're saying people say.
Nobody says that the Panthers are a good team.
No, people hope that the Panthers will have good seasons, but nobody's going to say the Panthers are a great blue chip franchise.
Yeah.
Like,
I don't know, man. I think maybe it's the way that Panthers fans walk around with their chest out. I just don't think that they have a realistic view of their team.
Are you just salty because the Ravens have sucked for a long time, basically since the Super Bowl? I think that's what it is.
Nah, man. I will take a realistic look at the Ravens and say that they right now are average, and they're trying to figure out what to do post Ray Lewis. You know what I mean?
But they walk around and with their chest puffed out all the time.
Does?
Ravens
fans. Ravens fans walk around understanding. Ravens fans, listen. Ravens fans walk around understanding that Joe Flacco should and probably could be traded tomorrow.
No, somebody could be.
No.
Yes.
No, Ravens fans say that. The last thing that Panthers fans want to do is realize that Cam Newton needs work.
No, Panthers fans talk about it all the time, dude. Like, see, this is what I'm saying, and this is why living in North Carolina as a North Carolina sports fan is so frustrating, because you have transplant fans that pull for other teams and just bag on the Panthers and the Hornets all the time. So fans of those actual teams will say, like, hey, like, no, we can be good. We have an opportunity to be good. No, we haven't been good in the past. No, the Panthers haven't been consistent. The best thing they've ever done is win 3 division titles in a row. And that's it. Like,
no. You know what the best they've ever done? You know what the best they've ever done? The best they've ever done is having 2 players in Space Jam.
That's the Hornets.
I'm sorry. You're saying Panthers. Sorry.
Yeah, like, no, the Hornets haven't done anything. The Hornets haven't made it past the second round in the playoffs. Nobody will sit there and say that they've done so much. You know, that they're like a great team, like great historical team. Like, of course not. They're not. Well, okay, nobody is saying that. Like, you saying that people are saying that is ridiculous. Fans get excited because they have the opportunity to play in the postseason. When the Hornets get to the postseason, it's rare. So people get excited about it. It's really, really pretty logical. It's not that hard to figure out. Like, Hornets fans get excited when their team goes to the playoffs. It doesn't happen that much, so their standard for what to get excited about is pretty low.
I just think we should expect more from our teams. That's what I believe.
What do you want? What do you want to expect? So are you saying that me as a fan, I should walk around all day long saying, "Oh, it's so sad. I'm so sad that my teams are average."
I'm saying that nobody admits that they are average.
What do you want me to freaking do, dude? Like, I'm excited about when my team can be good. Like, I'm not going to talk crap to a Steelers fan and say the Panthers are better than the Steelers in terms of franchises. I'm not even going to do that with the Ravens or, some other teams that haven't won like as many Super Bowls. But
look, man, I 100% recognize the fact that
I know that we have not won championships. You don't have to talk crap to me about that.
I didn't say you have.
Yes, you did, dude. No, this is the whole thing. This is what is so frustrating. Like, you laughing at me right now is like, I understand because I'm getting like loud and stuff, but it's ridiculous. When a team hasn't won a title yet, people say it's ridiculous. You're terrible fans. You're a dumb fan base.
No,
don't know what you're talking about.
I'm not saying that the Panthers or Hornets fans are dumb. Here's the thing. That's not what I'm saying.
Here's what it is, man. It is what it is. The Panthers' overall record from 95 to 2016-17 is about 500. They are a 500 franchise. They are a franchise that wins half their games and loses half their games. They have an up year, then they have a down year. It is life as a Panthers fan. Panthers fans know it. That's why they hope that they can be good one year and make a run to a Super Bowl like they have done before. And hopefully, maybe, just maybe, they might actually win one day. The Hornets, it is what it is. They have never won a conference finals, obviously. They've never played in a conference finals, obviously. They have never made it past the second round of the playoffs. They are a team that cannot win in the playoffs. It is what it is. You saying that people should expect more from their teams, what do you want me to do? Go out there and picket and boycott them?
And let me pause you for just a second.
Go ahead, Chad.
You're kind of wanting to have it both ways, Mike, because you're saying that fans should expect better, but then you're also saying that fans are like walk around acting like their team is really good, which is another story altogether. I definitely think that's fake news with regards both to the Hornets, of which I would not count myself a part of the fan base, but I respect the small population of people I know who are, and the Panthers. Like, come on, man. There are people who will say that the Panthers are awesome and that they're like the best franchise in the NFL. Those people are not Panthers fans. Those people started following the Panthers during the most recent Super Bowl run. Like, it's not really fair to lump those people in with Panthers fans and say, oh, well, you know, like Panthers fans have their heads in the clouds or whatever. Like they're not rooted in reality. Like, Panthers fans know the deal. Anybody who's been around for longer than 2 years knows that it's a story of occasional hope and frequent heartbreak. That's how it is. So we live for those moments of occasional hope. That's what we live for. But we know, like, yeah, I'm cautiously optimistic about this year's Panthers team. I would put my estimate for wins this year at somewhere between 9 and 11 wins. Like, I think we'll have a winning season this year, but especially after last year, I'm not going to be surprised if we only win 6 or 7 games. Like,
okay, so that's an excellent transition. So we've talked about where the state of Charlotte sports, and I will admit, I do think that the Charlotte Hornets have a good chance to be within fighting distance of a top 5 seed in the Eastern Conference. They have a chance, right? If everything breaks a certain way, if Dwight Howard becomes a Dwight Howard of what everybody hopes and believes that he can be, if Kemba is an all-star level talent again, I think they have a chance to vie for a top 5 seed, which makes a world of difference when you're talking about advancing in further rounds. Because if you're an 8 seed, you're not getting to the next round. If you're a 7 seed, chances are you're not getting to the next round. If you're in that middle range of seeds within the East, you have a chance to get to the next round. And so some of this restructuring of the East that's happened this summer gives the Charlotte Hornets a great chance to do that. Transitioning based off of some of what you've said to football, a little bit of things have been happening as it relates to the NFL offseason. Christian McCaffrey, who is highly touted coming out of college, is now with the Carolina Panthers. Throwing it to you guys because I'm not really watching, for my own reasons, watching the NFL this year until Colin Kaepernick gets signed. But I do want to hear what you guys have to say about the state of the Panthers and the state of preseason. We'll start with you, Chad.
I'll start. Yeah, I'm feeling pretty optimistic. Obviously would love to have seen Cam play at some point up to this point, but all signs are pointing towards him playing this Thursday. So I think that'll be good to see kind of how he's recovering from surgery. I've been thrilled as a Panthers fan to see how Christian McCaffrey's played. I do think that the I don't know how big of an impact he's going to have on the team has been slightly overblown, only because like people talk about McCaffrey like he's going to be the starter. I don't see that happening, barring a Jonathan Stewart injury. I think that, I mean, there's just like, there's too much loyalty built into the Panthers organization, and I think you know, they're gonna basically give Christian McCaffrey the Fozzie Whitaker role, I think, and Fozzie is probably actually gonna have a pretty hard time making the team, in my opinion.
So you don't think that somebody like a Christian McCaffrey should be picked up or considered in fantasy football?
Well, that's not necessarily true. So I think if you look at certainly if you look at average draft position, Christian McCaffrey is going super early, like the 3rd round. If you look at 10-team leagues, and that's in non-PPR. If you look at PPR, I'm sure he's going even earlier, probably like the second round. Whereas like Jonathan Stewart's going real late, like 9th round or something like that, 10th round in some drafts that I've seen. And I think that it's based mostly on upside. So I think that there is an argument to be made for taking Christian McCaffrey ahead of Jonathan Stewart. But at the end of the day, he's going to be a 3rd down back and a situational player. So I think he's obviously going to get some run. I say obvious. It may not be that obvious, but he's going to get some run out of the slot and pick up some receptions there for sure. He's going to be on the field every 3rd down. He will occasionally spell Stewart, I think, on 1st and 2nd downs, especially early in the season. I see him having a harder time getting on the field in 1st and 2nd. But yeah, I think to me, what will bring Christian McCaffrey fantasy value will be an injury to Jonathan Stewart. I have a hard time seeing him being like a 3-down back for the Panthers this year.
Now, David, you were saying that Christian McCaffrey, it's probably disingenuous. It's not necessarily the word you use, but to say that Christian McCaffrey would be a slot receiver.
Well, Christian McCaffrey
that's how we talked.
Christian McCaffrey by scout, all scouts, people who know their crap about NFL prospects, said Christian McCaffrey was the best route runner in this year's draft,
including receivers,
including wide receivers, running backs, everybody. Best like route runner, straight up skill wise. He knew the full route tree and everything. So what I think they're going to do, and it'd be stupid if they didn't do, is they'll bring him in and motion him out into like a slot receiver role, or even out on the outside in certain packages, and maybe even do like a 2-back set with J Stu, because then people wouldn't know where the ball was going. You know what I mean? So yeah, they're probably going to do a lot of different things with him, but Stewart is like their bell cow, 1st and 2nd down, run it up the gut back.
Yeah.
And Stu, my guess is Stu probably 7 times out of 10 is going to be the guy they give the ball to inside the 5-yard line. I mean, they'll obviously, I could see them throwing it to McCaffrey maybe, like kind of play action or something like that in the red zone to get him a touchdown. But I see Stu having most of the running back touchdowns, at least those on plays less than 10 yards.
Mm-hmm.
So what does this mean for Kelvin Benjamin, right? Like, I understand that they are essentially playing 2 different parts of the field, but there was some talk earlier about not earlier in the podcast, but earlier in the offseason about the skepticism of where Kelvin Benjamin is based off of where they were hoping that he would be. So what does this mean for him? Because I think there was talk, if I'm correct, about him not even getting the team option, right?
He got the team option
year. He ended up getting it, but there was talk about him possibly not getting it. At least from a media perspective.
He showed up to like mini camps and OTAs like super overweight,
like 30 pounds overweight.
I have a hard time understanding, but that's a different discussion.
Yes.
Understanding being overweight
as a professional athlete. and
Oh
you know
yeah,
that
yeah,
like
for sure.
it's
No,
your job to come back.
he got ripped pretty bad for it. But he has lost all of that weight and has had a really good preseason so far.
Yeah.
So, you know, Kelvin Benjamin for most of his career gets a lot of his stats during garbage time in games, and a lot of times when games don't matter. So we'll see if he can be more reliable. I think that's where my whole issue with him is, because like, you know, everybody knows what he does best, which is like run and jump and get the ball because you're bigger than everybody else. You know?
Can't coach that.
Yeah. Yeah. So like I think that's the thing with KB is can he be more reliable and cut down on his drops, run better routes, and get open better? Because that was his problem last year. He couldn't get separation from DBs. So, and that mixed with Cam's accuracy problems that he had, it was pretty bad. It was rough.
Now there was a lot of talk last year about. Well, let me ask you this. You guys both heard some of the stuff that Colin Cowherd, this would be great little point before we roll out. Colin Cowherd's points or his thoughts about Cam Newton and his decision to take the easy way out as a running quarterback. A lot of people who are Panthers fans not too happy with Colin Cowherd. Some people calling him racist. Now, I don't necessarily ascribe to that, especially when you talk about stuff like Charlottesville. But there was a lot of people who were not too happy. I want you guys' thoughts.
What did he say?
Yeah, I don't think I heard this.
So he essentially said that Cam Newton, as a running quarterback, has consistently taken the easy way out as it relates to being a quarterback in the NFL, doing the hard work.
He relied on his athleticism as opposed to
being a real quarterback, quote unquote, is being somebody who develops the skills of staying in the pocket and delivering the football as is the traditional quarterback whatever job description,
prototype or whatever. Yes. Yeah. I don't think that's really a fair characterization. Obviously, like, Cam is known for his running, and he is a fantastic runner at the quarterback position. He scored a lot of touchdowns. He's gained a lot of yards on the ground, but I think that we have seen when things are going well. So if we take a look back at the Super Bowl season, Cam's Super Bowl season, and of course, one season does not a career make. Nonetheless, if you look at that season, look at how many plays he made throwing to Ted Ginn downfield. He hung out in the pocket and he just chucked it downfield. I think that year, so the Ted Ginn throws are one example, but I think in a general sense, you could see he was very comfortable in the pocket. He was very accurate in the pocket. Obviously, a lot of that fell apart last year as the offensive line deteriorated and as his own health deteriorated. We saw his inaccuracy kind of coming back, and then of course, he also was not effective as a runner last year due to much of the same reasons, offensive line and his own health and so forth. But I think even to classify him just as a running quarterback is not really fair. A, and B, I think, everything that I've heard and read about Cam's preparation and his dedication to honing his craft is that it's, almost at like Peyton Manning levels. I'm not going to say he's like Peyton Manning, but my understanding is that he puts in a lot of time and a lot of work to be better, to understand the offense. Like, I think that it's not really fair to say that he is, we'll call him like a bigger version of Mike Vick. I think that's basically the characterization that he's trying to make. And I don't think that's accurate or fair.
What do you think, David?
Yeah, I think I have like mixed opinions on this because I see where that quote, like where that mindset, like I see where he's coming from with that. I do think it's worded a little bit harsh, but I also know he has to get headlines and ratings and stuff, and I understand. But um, I think that Cam Newton is a really interesting guy for me. There is times where I feel like he's the best quarterback in the NFL, and there's times where I feel like he is like ridiculously annoying to watch as a fan and frustrating. And I think that comes from the fact being that he is not accurate with short to intermediate passes, but he is one of, if not the most accurate deep ball throwers in the NFL statistically. So basically, he runs the ball and throws it really far, really well.
Right.
That's like what he does well. And which makes him different than what the typical historically good NFL quarterback does. Whenever the Panthers have been asked about this, they always have some, newsworthy quote. But, this year it was Cam saying, "You're not going to ask a lion not to roar." Last year, Dave Gettleman said, "You're not going to hold back a thoroughbred from running." I think it's not just Cam, but like the whole team ascribes to it. He wants to. That's where he's best. He's a defensive end that has like wide receiver speed almost. Like, like that. It's pretty amazing when you think about it from that perspective. Like, why wouldn't you do that? But the problem is like he doesn't have good footwork and he doesn't have really good prototypical quarterback skills to fall back on when he can't run it. You know what I mean? So, like in the Super Bowl against the Broncos, they said after the game, "Yeah, we just took away their run and we made them pass. Like that was our game plan." And it worked because our line couldn't hold back their pass rushers and Cam couldn't hit his quick targets, when he only had like a really small window to throw it. Like, so I guess all that to say is I think he's right, but I also think there's more nuance to that, and it's like that skimming the surface. I think like they just had ESPN just did a really long article interview with Ron Rivera about this specifically, and he talked about, he was like, "Look, like we think Cam is a pocket passer. The stuff we've asked him to do, just because we haven't asked him to do some of that stuff doesn't mean he can't do it." So I think this year is going to tell the world a lot about Cam Newton's potential as an NFL QB.
Yeah. Chad, you talked about that they could be pretty good, or they could end up being 7-9, right? 7-9, 6-10. David, what are you thinking as the record this year? What's your assessment based off of what you're seeing in preseason? Now, granted, we haven't actually seen Cam yet this preseason, so maybe that's going to have a little bit of bearing on it. But your thoughts?
Yeah, man. I mean, if the NFL is a really weird league, because if a team stays healthy all year, then a lot of the times they're in the playoffs. And if they stay healthy in the playoffs, a lot of the times they make it to the conference championship or the Super Bowl. It's what happened with Atlanta last year. It's what happened with Carolina the year before. They stayed healthy and they were able to maintain their, consistent level of play. With that being said, taking into account that some injuries will happen to good players and some of their young players will step up, hopefully. I think they'll be a 10-6 team. I don't think that 7-9 is out of the question. By all means, I don't think that 12-4 is out of the question. Honestly, the best team in our division last year was the Falcons, and they just got a brand new offensive coordinator and defensive coordinator, and their offensive coordinator hasn't like really ever coached in the NFL before.
Right.
So like
So you're not really seeing Atlanta as being a problem this year.
I mean, I'm not saying that because they are super talented. They could be really good again, but
they're not invincible. I think that's the point.
yeah, and they could be really good again, but they could, they could regress as well. Yeah, man, I think it's not to say like we could. I don't know. We could be 7-9. We could be 12-4. I think that we will be good, not great. And that could, if everybody's healthy at the end of the season and we can gear up and make a playoff run, that'd be cool. But this year was, and here's the bad part of this. This year, Jerry Richardson wanted to push all in to make a run at a Super Bowl. And he spent a lot of money on free agents, fired his general manager because they're on different pages, I guess. That's a whole nother topic. But yeah, and I think he's really wanting to win a Super Bowl now. That being said, I don't think
he's tasted it enough times.
Yeah, I don't think they did enough to get to that point unless some serious things fall in their favor.
I mean, there could be magic like there was in 2015 or whatever. Was that?
Yeah, but I mean, the one thing they have going for them is they have an overall easier schedule. And yeah, they got some good free agents. And also their coach, if they don't, I think if they go 8-8 or worse, I think Ron Rivera is probably going to get fired.
Yeah, I feel like he's been, at least with fans, has been on the hot seat for the last 3 years.
No, dude, he was coach of the year 2 years ago.
No, I understand that, but like,
and also the
year, I feel like the year before they went, they almost ran the table. I feel like fans were like ready for him to go.
Yeah, because he is like the typical Carolina Panthers coach that Panthers fans hate.
But that's what I'm saying. It's like there were a lot of people who were ready for him to go.
Like, I don't know. He annoys me because I feel like he only does things differently when he's about to get fired. Twice that's happened. And this could be another one of those years. So, I mean,
and that's honestly though, that's the great thing about football, and that's one of the encouraging things about the North Carolina sports scene, right? Is that if you're talking about the Charlotte Hornets, they have to end up landing the #1 pick in the draft and scoring a LeBron James to be able to win the championship, right? And then other pieces, of course, have to fall in line. With the Carolina Panthers, at any point in time, any year, just out of sheer even dumb luck, they could end up going all the way.
Yeah,
you know, and there is a semblance of talent, of course. Like the Browns, we know year after year they're not doing anything. You know what I mean? So as long as you're not the Browns or the Dolphins, at least for the last couple of years, you could say it again.
I said, in Sashi we trust. The Browns are back, baby.
Yeah, so I mean, like, unless you're like the Browns or like somebody like the Jets, you know what I mean? Like, you have a chance. Even the Jets, on certain years, have a chance,
bro.
To, like, randomly get to the Super Bowl, you know. And so that's the great thing about football. So real quick, here in a couple of weeks, we're going to be doing our 9th, as we said earlier, our 9th fantasy football draft for the secret underground nuclear base. It's honestly the only one that I'm left in. It's the only fantasy football league that I'm still in. And so it's been a stalwart in my life for the last 9 years since we roomed together and since we knew each other in college. What's one of the big takeaways, each of us, before we roll out, of what we're looking for this year in the draft? Without giving away too much of your strategy, I guess.
Oh, man. Do I have to go first?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, I'll go first.
As the commish.
Yeah, I guess I am the commish. I think for me, it's figuring out how to make the most out of rounds, like, we'll say like rounds 6 through 9. I feel like it's all like every year that's always kind of
the dead spot after those first 5 rounds. Yeah.
Because I mean, like, the first 5 rounds, you're typically picking players that you are planning on starting week in, week out, and like you expect them to be good. A lot of the guys round 6 through 10 even, it's a little bit more like trying to find somebody who could be good. And so I feel like every year for me, my success hinges largely, I mean, obviously on injuries, you know, so like staying healthy, much like an NFL team, but yeah, success largely depends on how well I do in those rounds. So I think getting those picks right is probably my focus.
Do we already know who's picking when?
We don't. So this is the only league that I'm in that that I leave the pick order randomized up into it, and it is like revealed an hour before the draft.
Got it.
I always left it that way for legacy reasons. I like don't want to change anything about this league. So
what about you, David? What you got this year?
Well, I just thought of something cool. I want to share it. What if, and this, I'm going to say this, and it could be construed the wrong way. I don't want it to be construed the wrong way because I have no problem. I don't want to make a joke out of like serious situations, but you know how like the hot button issue right now in the NFL is like players like taking a knee during the national anthem.
Yeah, I've got a bunch of thoughts about that. We can do that at a different part, but go for it.
I think it's awesome. Like, I don't have any problems with it. I think it's great.
Sure.
But I just thought within the scope of fantasy football, what if you got like activism points? Like if one of your players took a knee during the national anthem, you got like an extra 10 points that week.
That's actually a great idea.
Like just kind of like add like a little fun aspect to it. But no, I think I always tried to draft running backs and wide receivers early, but I think everybody does that.
Yeah, that's kind
of like a tale as old as time in fantasy football.
It's one of those like if you don't do it, then you're like really a noob.
Yeah, exactly.
Except for if you draft Peyton Manning first overall,
and then trade him away a couple of weeks later.
Oh, did you trade him?
Yeah, you remember that? Just before his like 60-point week or whatever.
God.
Oh my gosh!
No, I don't think I traded him. I think I let him go.
No, you won. Didn't you win the league that year? I thought you won the league.
I don't think I ever
drafted Peyton Manning, and that was like his best ever year.
I think it was like I think Peyton Manning was like Mike's only good pick that year or something.
Yeah,
it was pretty bad.
I remember that. I thought he was so dumb. I was like, that is so dumb, and then it actually ended up being so smart.
I still remember, and I'm sure we'll talk about this
like
during
the number one pick of the draft.
But I still remember I was in Chicago for work during that game, the NFL opener, and so I was like coming into town on that Thursday. It was weird. It was something weird, or on that Thursday, and so I like got to my hotel at like 10:30 or something. Like the game was already like 3/4 of the way over. And Peyton Manning already had like 6 touchdowns or something.
Yeah, man.
And I immediately thought I was like, I can't believe this is gonna pay off for him.
I just remember John Fox after that game be like, yeah, Peyton 7 touchdowns, yeah. In his like raspy voice, and thinking as a Panthers fan, like, you're about to win a friggin' Super Bowl because you happen to coach the team that got Peyton Manning.
Right.
And then he didn't end up winning, which is funny. But
I think what I might go ahead. Did you have more?
Oh yeah. Well, I was just gonna say, like, I get really into the NFL draft, and I don't do that much fantasy prep. And so every year, my draft strategy is to try and know the most about young players coming into the league to try and strike gold, so to speak.
Yeah, to get
on some
like,
late picks.
Yeah,
it has never worked for me. But I can constantly do it every year.
Well, go for it, because that's where I was going to go off of, is that I don't think in the years past I've ever like intentionally gone after rookies, and I feel like every year there's 1 or 2 rookies that pop. Right now, granted, it's like extremely random, and they generally are picked in the later rounds. I've been thinking about taking the angle of finding a couple of rookies and going for them in the first couple of picks in the draft.
Hey man, I
don't do
encourage you to employ that strategy. Mike.
Oh yeah, do that.
That's a great idea. Maybe I'll do the same thing. It's such a great idea. I think I might take it
Don't
myself.
pick Antonio Brown. You need to pick Zay Jones from Buffalo.
Right.
First or second round. That's your pick.
No, man, I'm gonna go with who just picked up like a defensive guy with their first pick. I'm gonna go with their defense.
Oh, the Browns.
Yeah, the Browns.
Yeah.
Browns D, baby.
Choose the Browns D as the first pick of the draft.
that Brownie D.
I remember looking at the chat room when I picked Peyton Manning, and it was like, remember? Did I ever send you guys that video of when it was all these all-stars who used to play basketball, and they did a all-star draft? David, I think I sent it to you. Did I send it to you? You had to have seen it. And Charles, no, because they did like an all-time player draft, an all-time all-star player draft.
Yeah.
And so, okay, I'm gonna have to send it to you, Chad. And the first pick of the draft was Allen Iverson by Charles Barkley. Like you could pick any player that ever lived, and the first player he picked was Allen Iverson.
Oh my gosh, dude.
So that's kind of how I felt, or looking back on it.
What you just described is exactly what it felt like being in the draft room. Like, could not believe that, man.
You done lost your damn mind. So my strategy never works. I'm always really good at the beginning of the year, and then for some reason I just start losing the games.
Yeah,
I don't know what it is.
Like maybe it was either last year or the year before. I feel like I caught a little bit of steam towards the end of the year. So, it's always about like, can you find somebody can you find the people who are going to step up when people start getting hurt by week 6? You know what I mean?
That helps. Yep.
Chad, do you have a list of past winners?
I don't have like a list in a notebook, but I can easily find the past.
Yeah,
winners.
let's have that for when we talk about it.
I just wonder who's won it the most. And
it's probably you, Chad, right?
I think it's you know what? I was like on my way to a 3-peat, and those were the first two times that the first two in the 3-peat. I think were the first times that I'd won, and I hadn't won since then. So I've won twice. I think Justin maybe has won twice.
I've never won.
Was it Shannon? Has he ever won?
That's a good question. Shannon might have won.
He might have won one year.
Did you? Yeah. Didn't you win it one year, Michael?
I'm not 100% sure because I was in. There was a couple years where I was in 2 leagues, and so I'm not like 2 or 3 leagues, and I wasn't 100% sure what I won and what I didn't. If I didn't win, I got close.
Yeah.
Hey, let me tell this story real quick before we leave. So one time I did a fantasy couples league, and it was when I was dating my wife, and it was, I guess, like 2010, 2011, maybe.
Were you already dating Allison then?
Yeah, senior year of college.
I guess
the year it was the football season after our senior year of college. So I was still in college for that one semester, but
so 2011, 2012.
First pick, Allison has like the 3rd pick in the draft, and she didn't know anything about football, and I was like, "Oh, pick Peyton Manning, pick Peyton Manning, right?" Peyton Manning that's the year he had all his neck issues, didn't play it down. And she was so bad. Like our team was so awful. Like we wasted a pick. I didn't even know it at the time. And right after she picked him, I think I was doing it with like Blake. He was there. He was like, "Yeah, dude, but Peyton Manning's like hurt. Like they don't know if he's gonna play." I was like, "Oh, nice."
Oh man, awesome. Well, cool guys. So we'll get back up in a couple of weeks and probably do live from the draft room for the anniversary draft. How about that? So we'll get back up then. Thank you guys so much for listening to No You're Not Objective. It's been a fun one, but it's actually been a little bit long. But I think this has been one of the more interesting ones. So I may end up cutting this up. We're at like an hour and a half. So I may end up cutting this up and doing the football as like and putting the football piece of it as its own podcast. because I really think the basketball one got a little interesting. Got a little interesting. We got to really talking about what NYNO is all about. So thank you guys so much for listening to No You're Not Objective. I've been Michael. My man David is on the other line with our main man Chad, who we will be bringing back for the fantasy football podcast. Thank you guys so much for coming on, David and Chad.
Yes, sir.
See ya, man.
All right. See you guys.
Are we still publishing?
Like stopping it. I'm gonna cut this out.